Hello again and welcome to our first video on decimals for DMA 20. In section 7 we're going to talk about an introduction to decimals, and this is part 1 of a two-part video series for this section. In this first video for section 7 we'll cover place value, the expanded form of a decimal, and then reading and writing decimals in standard form. In the next video we'll cover how to compare decimals with greater than or less than signs, rounding decimals, and then application problems. First we'll cover place value. Now this chart can be found on page 93 of your book. And let's notice what's going on here. Everything to the left of the decimal is what we call a whole number, and everything to the right of the decimal is the fractional part. Now, to review, the whole number parts start with the ones place, and then they increase by multiples of 10. We have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and then millions is where this chart ends. But it would continue on to the next multiple of 10 would be 10 millions, and then 100 millions, and then billions, and then keep repeating in that pattern. Now the fractional part of the decimal does the same thing, but since they're fractions, these powers of 10 end in THS, or th. Now notice there's no oneths place. That just doesn't make sense. So we start with the tenths place. And as we count, we go by another multiple of 10 each time. So we start with tenths, then hundredths, and then thousandths, and then 10,000ths, and then 100,000ths, then millionths, and then we would continue with 10 millionths, 100 millionths, billions, and so on. So we increase by a power of 10 with each place that we move over. Now on to expanded form. The expanded form of a decimal shows both the value and the place value of each digit in the number. So we're going to write each digit with its value and its place value. So we'll start with the 5 here. This 5 is in the hundreds place. So when we write this in expanded form, we would write it as 500. The number and its place value. Okay, the next number is 9, and it's in the tenths place, so we would express it as 90, and we're going to add each as we go along. The next number is 2 in the ones place, so we just express that as 2. Next, we'll move on to our fractional or our decimal part. The first number we see is 8, and that's in the tenths place, so we're going to write this as 8 tenths as a fraction, 8 over 10. And this is the one time when you really wouldn't reduce these fractions, because we want to show that that's in the tenths place. And then we would continue on to our next number, which is 6 in the hundreds place. So we would write this as 6 over 100. Now we have nothing in the thousands place, so we go next to the 10,000s place. So we don't write 0 over 1,000. We're going to skip that and go to the 10,000s place. We're going to write 4 10,000s. And this is that number expressed in expanded form. Now we'll move on to reading and writing decimals. We'll start with how to read a decimal. To read a decimal, look to the left of the decimal point and say the name of the whole number, just like you would before. Just don't make sure not to use any extra ands. Some people say 150, and in mathematics that's not correct, because we'll see in step 2 the decimal point is read as and. So don't insert an and anywhere before the decimal point. You read the decimal as and then you say the decimal part as a whole number, and then you follow with the place value of the last digit. So that tenths, hundredths, thousandths, whatever the place value of that last digit is. So we'll start with these examples here. First we're going to read the number in front of the decimal, 184, not 184. That and would be incorrect. 184 and 3 tenths. the last place value here is the tenths place, so that's 184 and 3/10. The second example, 9 and, we'll read this as 69 hundredths, because the last digit is in the hundredths place. In the third example, there's no whole number, so we won't say anything here. And that means we also won't say and. We won't say 0 and then the decimal part. We'll just start by reading the decimal part. Don't pay any attention to these zeros, leading zeros, when we're reading the number. We would read this as 43, and then the last place value is 10 thousandths. So we would read this as 43 10,000ths, because it ends in the 10,000ths place. And here we have a negative number. We follow the same rules, we just say negative first. So this would be negative 37 and 7/10. To write a decimal, we use the same method for reading a decimal, but in reverse. So we're going to write the decimal part first, or the whole number part first, then where we see the word and, that's where a decimal goes, and then we'll write the decimal part, making sure to end in the proper place. So this first example, 172 and 43 hundredths. So we write the whole number first, that's the part that comes before the word and, 172, and is where our decimal goes, and then 43 hundredths. The hundredths place is two places past the decimal, so we need to make sure the last number of this, the 3, ends in that place. So I like to write it backwards. 3 and then 4. Alright, so there we have 172 and 43 hundredths. Second example, we have 11 and 51 thousandths. So we'll write the whole number first, 11, and is our decimal, 51 thousandths. Now the thousandths place is 3 places past the decimal. So I'm going to draw in those places, 1, 2, 3, and then the last number of this, the 1 of 51, needs to end in that place. So again, I'll write backwards. The 1 goes there, and then the 51 goes here. And I have to put a number in that blank space, and we'll use a 0 as a placeholder to do that. So this is the number 11 and 51 thousandths written in standard form. So those topics complete the first video of section 7. In this video we talked about place value, the expanded form of a decimal, and then reading and writing decimals in standard form. In the next video for section 7, we'll cover comparing decimals, rounding decimals, and then an application problem.